It's time for another Monster of the Month, and this month we're going to the chaos of Limbo.
For Slaads!
Slaads. Welcome to the Blue Dragon Guild, a channel all about Dungeons and Dragons. I'm Baron.
I'm Chris.
Slaads. They're fun creatures. They recently came out with some Slaad minis in the Nolzur's line, and it kind of got us thinking, like, you know, that's a monster we've not really used that often. So we decided we'd do some research, do a Monster of the Month video on them, and I think we can both say that we'll definitely be using Slaads in the near future.
They're pretty different than anything else you encounter.
Yeah.
So, Slaads, or Slaadi as they are called, which is a little harder to say, are the main inhabitants of the chaos of Limbo. They're created by, generally in the lore, from the stone that Primus, which is the leader of Mechanus and all that other lore mess, he created the stone to bring law to the chaos and fix it, and instead, all of that chaos made these magical aberrations called Slaad, which look like sort of frog people mixed with fish. It's very strange. But they sort of got loose, and now they try to capture other humanoids and reproduce by putting this weird disease on them.
Yeah. Another way that the Slaad reproduce is by implanting an egg inside of a humanoid. One cool thing with that is whenever the humanoid turns into the Slaad, they have all the memories of that previous Slaad that turned them. So that way, you know, if there was any plan that Slaad was doing and that Slaad got killed, well, this new Slaad is going to continue on in that plan.
So, the race of Slaads are broken down and organized by color. There's red, blue, green, gray, and then the top level, which is the Death Slaad. And we'll cover all of that in brief later. It's pretty scary.
Yeah.
But they sort of go from red to gray and through various forms that we'll discuss and how that happens.
First, we'll take a look at the Red Slaad. They're a CR5 creature. They get multi-attack, bite, and with that they get 1 bite and then 2 claw attacks. So 3 attacks, which is pretty good. I think pretty good for a CR5 kind of creature. With their claw attack, that is how they infect the humanoids or give them the disease, put the egg in, whichever way that I guess you as the DM choose to do it. And with the Slaads, there is another thing on the Slaad page, and it does kind of fall into that. It's not really technically a Slaad, but it's the Slaad tadpole, and once you're infected with either disease or the egg, basically over 3 months and then 1 day, the egg will slowly transform into the tadpole. The egg, you know, it'll go up to your chest and then it bursts out of you, hardcore alien style. If you go to a village and then everybody starts having weird creatures blow up out of their chest, you should probably run.
Yeah, just leave.
Yeah.
However, it should be known that if you have a spell that cures disease of any kind, it will kill the tadpole before it blows up.
Yeah.
The next color in order of toughness is the Blue Slaad. They are CR7, so just slightly higher. They get a few more abilities. They have magic resistance, that's interesting. They get regeneration, so they can regain like 10 hit points. And they also get the multi-attack, 1 bite, 2 claw. However, instead of the disease with the tadpole, they get something slightly different. It's called Chaos Phage. So if you fail your con save, you get this disease, and while you're infected, you cannot regain hit points ever while you have the disease. That's awful, number one. Then your hit point maximum is reduced by 3d6 every 24 hours, increasingly bad. If you die during this way, so if your max hit points reach 0 and you can't gain any, so you're dead, instantly transform into a red Slaad. Unless you're a spellcaster, in which case you become a green Slaad, so 1 level higher. And that only matters if you are able to cast spells of 3rd level or higher. You become this green Slaad. The only way to reverse this transformation is the wish spell. So super nasty.
Yeah, they are.
They only go up 1 point in armor class, so they're not too bad to hit, but They got a lot of hit points, and if you get got by their claw, I hope your con is good, because it's really bad for you.
You think about the spellcasters, I mean, most of them, they put, Constitution as a higher stat, but is it something that they are proficient in?
Right.
And most of the time, no.
Exactly.
So,
it should also be known, what's interesting about Slaads is, yes, they're chaotic because they're on limbo, but they're chaotic neutral. So you can sort of do a lot of funky things with that.
yeah. Advancing a level above the red and the blue Slaad is the green Slaad, like Chris had stated. One of the big differences with the green Slaad is they get spellcasting, and they get, at will, detect magic, detect thoughts, and mage hand, and then twice per day, fear and invisibility, self only, and then once per day, fireball. In addition, they also have multi-attack like the other ones, bite and claw. They also have a staff option, and they also get hurl flame. The other big difference between this Slaad and the previous two is that it gets shape changer. They can polymorph into a small or medium humanoid or back to its true form. Its statistics, other than its size, are the same in each form, and if they're killed, they revert back. Now, the shape changer is available on the gray and death Slaads as well.
So moving on to the second of the highest is the gray Slaad. Now, what's interesting about these is they physically go down in size. They're only a medium creature when the rest of the Slaads were large. I thought that was interesting. But they get a sort of a mix of both. They get spellcasting, such spells as Mage Hand, the basic sort of Major Image, that's interesting. They also get Plane Shift once a day, that's very cool. Fear, Fly, Fireball, and Tongues. Most important of those is Fireball, and they get it twice a day. So they get more fire, a little nastier spells. They also get the access to a magic greatsword, which is interesting. So they're almost like an Eldritch Knight, but not quite. So I think that was cool. They're one of the only ones that get a physical melee weapon and spellcasting and all these other horrible things that we talk about. So they don't get a disease because they get the greatsword, but all of their attacks are magical, and they do get multiple greatsword attacks in addition to bite, and they also have shape changer, and some of their actions are limited by that ability, but they're way tougher. 18 AC, a lot more health, a lot of good resistances, blind sight, dark vision, and the list goes on.
Yeah.
So they're going to be, and they're CR 9. That's still not crazy high. And they're very tough and can be really bad for your party if, you don't really think that they're going to be much. Be like, oh, there's this little, frog guy, and he has all of these stats.
Yeah. The thing I like is that he gets a magic greatsword, because how many times does, unless the DM gives it to him, how many times does a monster get a magic weapon?
Right.
Not that often, so it's one of those quirky little things that makes Slaad really fun.
And they all get it, all gray Slaads. So it's just they're transformed or born or whatever method the book or you the DM make it happen. They just have this sword.
And last we've got the cream of the crop, the Death Slaad. One thing we both noted that the Death Slaad is the only evil Slaad. I mean, they're the Death Slaad. They should be evil. Like the green and the gray, they have shape changer and they have spells. Good old Fireball. They get Cloud Kill, which is a really fun spell, and Plane Shift, which if your villain is a Slaad, Plane Shift would be a nice little trick you can pull on your party, oh, we're gonna get him, we're gonna kill him. Right at the last second, the Slaad says, nope, Plane Shift's right out of there.
The other interesting thing is Plane Shift on the previous one we discussed on the gray is only on self. This is Plane Shift, period.
Yep.
So you could Plane Shift, in theory, the whole party to their home and more trouble.
So the Death Slaad also gets magical resistance, which gives it advantage on saving throws against spells and other effects. Their weapon attacks are magic. They also get a greatsword, and they have the regeneration. They regen 10 hit points at the start of their turn, as long as they at least have one.
Their greatsword attack, in addition to being 2d6 plus 5, which is already really cool, It also does extra 2d6 necrotic damage, so that's pretty extreme if you crit them.
Yep.
That's a lot of damage, and not a lot of things are resistant to necrotic. And like you said, it's definitely magical. All of their things are magical, and they're CR10. So they've all been up by a couple, and this is the top that mixed all of the abilities of the other slots together, drop the disease, and instead get better spells, more spell slots, and the magic greatsword. And these also, lore-wise, are used to like lead the battalions of lesser Slaads. So that's why, one, they're evil, and they're sort of your general for your Slaads, makes them a lot tougher.
Yeah, in the lore, it's kind of noted that while there can be independent Slaads, but if a green Slaad comes along, the red and the blue, they'll kind of bend the knee to them, and that that just goes on up the chain. So Chris, what are some interesting or fun ways that you might use Slaad in a game?
I had an interesting idea to do. You're in a town or a city. City would be even the best, probably. And you have a wizard who is messing around with teleportation circles or how to do planar travel, and he accidentally opens up a rift to Limbo. Not usually a big deal, but he can't get it closed. So now the lesser Slaads are coming out, kidnapping citizens, including the wizard, back to Limbo, and now the party has to go there on their own turf and beat them before the tadpoles blow out of the people's chests. I thought that was neat, and Limbo is nuts, as it should be. I mean, it constantly changes. One time you're in the ocean, and then you might be in the air, and it's just crazy effects, crazy monsters, resistance to everything. It's going to throw your party for a major loop, and they're not going to know how to handle it.
That can kind of tie into the idea that I had. My idea was more on a grand scale. Starting out, at CR5, you could have these, the red Slaads, blue Slaads, which are 7, but you can have them coming in, and, the party encounters them. Maybe, since they're neutral, they don't get into a skirmish with the party lets them go, but then, more Slaads just keep showing up. The party, then has to figure out where in the heck are all these things coming from. They do some research, and they find out, they attack people and reproduce in that way. Well, maybe we shouldn't have let him go, or vice versa. I mean, even if they kill him, all his Slaad buddies are now coming for him. And then, you can just keep going on with the Slaad thing, and it doesn't have to be repetitive, like every single game, you're encountering the Slaads. But, every 3 or 4 sessions, it's like, well, there's some more Slaads show up. And eventually, once they're high enough level, then you can shift their focus to that Death Slaad, and that Death Slaad, coming after them, or however you want to do it as the DM. I think that would be really fun, because these are some really unique monsters, and you can definitely come up with some memorable encounters with these guys.
You could even do the same Slaad getting transformed, as you said, because, red to blue. Well, now he did something with magic. Cool, now he's a green. He levels up to a gray, and if the gray eats like a corpse, I think, during a certain situation, they become the Death Slaad. So you could start with nothing, and he could end up as your boss, which is really cool.
So this is our look at the Slaad. If you've ever encountered any in any of your games, if you ever ran any as the DM, let us know down in the comments below. I want to take a quick sec to give a shout out to some really awesome YouTubers that we've encountered and have been treating us really, really well. And they have a very similar name to ours, but it's Blue Dragon RPG. I'll post a link to their channel down in the description. They do a lot of unboxing and product review videos, so it'd be awesome if you check those guys out.
So if you like this video and you want to see more D&D content like this from us, hit that subscribe button.
And until next time, keep the dice rolling.